Welcome to Green Connections Radio, where we help you live green, work green, and earn green. I'm Joan Michelson. Find us online on greenconnectionsradio.com, like us on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter at Joan Michelson. And we also have a Twitter page for Green Connections, which is GCM_DC. So you can follow us there as well. We have with us today an amazing woman, Amy Francetic, who is the executive director of the Clean Energy Trust in Chicago. The reason that I wanted to talk to Amy, and I'll tell you a little bit about what Amy does at the Clean Energy Trust in a moment, but the reason I wanted to talk to Amy is because we were both just at the ARPA-E 2014 Summit, which is the major, in my view, gathering of thought leaders in clean energy who are talking about breakthrough technologies to expedite this clean energy revolution and really put it on steroids. Amy's in a unique seat because as the founding executive director of the Clean Energy Trust, they incubate clean energy companies, clean energy technology companies. They provide a full range of business development services to clean energy startups, from advice to potentially capital for promising technologies. Two of their mentees have twice won the Department of Energy's Clean Energy National Business Plan competition. Bravo, bravo. And also, they are launching the Clean Energy Challenge, which connects entrepreneurs with investors and services and potentially capital and other resources as well. So welcome to Green Connections, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me, Joan, and it was great to see you in Washington, D.C. recently.
Thank you. I wish you would come to our neck of the woods more often. It's really
fun.
I
always have a great time, and there are so many interesting people doing interesting things. So I feel like there's definitely a hotbed of activity, and we should spend some more time there.
Well, it'd be cool, and it's better weather than in Chicago most of the time.
That's not very hard to achieve, so that's not saying a lot.
Right. So let's cut right to it. We were both at ARPA-E. What at the ARPA-E 2014 Summit really caught your attention? What did you walk away from ARPA-E thinking?
I'm very impressed with the conference in general. I think the attendees are always very high quality, and from my perspective, the most valuable thing for me is networking and connecting with folks that are working on similar things across the country that I only maybe see a few times a year. I think what I really was unique about ARPA-E as an agency is they really do have an incredible view into all of these different disciplines and connections to all of the key innovators across all facets of energy, more so than probably any other office within the DOE, because they work really, on everything from storage to efficiency to fuels to smart grid. I think we're definitely tracking storage as one of the big major themes that we think are going to be important from an adoption, investment, and just sort of technology maturation standpoint, and then also related to that, microgrids and distributed generation. And those themes were hit really hard at the event, really matching what we're seeing here in the Midwest and in Chicago.
That's good. Yes, I agree with you about storage. I think that it really goes to, in my view, the reinvention also of the utility of tomorrow, if you will, because storage is so critical to getting the distribution right. You can't really have as many options for energy sources if you don't have some kind of storage.
Right.
So speaking of storage, let's talk about batteries for a minute. Clean Energy Trust has a pretty big footprint in batteries, as I recall these days. What is coming down the pike? What is the big story in batteries? And separately, perhaps, why have so many battery companies failed, even though they got millions and millions of dollars from the government?
So I think the chemistry is just fundamentally very hard. And I think that like a lot of energy companies, batteries are capital intensive. You have to figure out how to produce these cells at scale, and you've got to be able to do it safely. And you've seen how important that is to the transportation sector. These batteries run hot. The really high-performing batteries run hot, and so you've got to find some way to manage the heat, and you've got to find some way to reproduce the cells in high volume very, very safely. And there's just not that many people around the world that know how to do that.
And inexpensively. I mean, the big problem with lithium-ion batteries is they're so bleeping expensive. I mean, basically the cost of a traditional car is the price of the batteries.
Yeah, and that's why Tesla wants to increase their own battery capacity in the U.S. so that they can figure out how to have more control over the supply chain and get the cost down so that they can make the overall price of their cars more mass market. But it's just really, really tough, and they need a lot of money. So they need investors that are patient and that will stay with them, and they're going to hit roadblocks, and they have to be able to keep going. And one of them, hopefully, or more than one, will win.
What are the technologies that they're using? I mean, are they all lithium ion, or are they like
No, they're all other technologies. They're all different technologies. Some are flow batteries, some are metal air batteries, some are all different chemistries. So yeah, everybody's kind of got a slightly different approach, and they're for different applications, and I couldn't even explain to you what each one does.
By the way, are any of them either have founded by a woman or have a woman on their senior team?
Good question. None of them are founded by women that I know of, and I don't know the senior team well enough to say if there are females on the team. The chemistry industry is not overwhelmed with women entrepreneurs, so that is an issue. I mean, I will say here, let me tell you one. So there's 2 women-led companies that are not battery companies, but in our area. So Jennifer Holmgren runs Lanzatech, which has a alternative fuel technology, and then Daphne Preuss runs Chromatin, and that is a sort of a genetic solution for grown fuels. And they're both 2 women that have PhDs in chemistry and or physics. And so I know they exist, but they just weren't in my subset of what I mentioned to you of those battery companies.
What are clean energy investors or clean energy focused investors investing in these days? What's really captured their attention?
Well, I think we are encouraged that some of these folks have participated in these battery rounds. That is a breath of fresh air from the venture community. What has happened trend-wise is energy efficiency and also looking for software plays that are capital efficient and that will perform from a company multiple and exit standpoint a little bit more like an IT investment would. They can go to market a little faster. They require less capital, and they can be bought for multiples that reflect a little bit more what a hardware or software company would look like. And the other thing that we've observed with a lot of the venture community is that early on, like in the last maybe 5 years ago, as the sector was getting hot, many of the investors misjudged the importance of policy and relationship to current utility companies. And that was just something that maybe the investors didn't understand, why you'd need to have a relationship with a utility company or why you need to understand how a policy would or wouldn't help make the market for your business. So I think that there's the investors that are participating now are much more savvy about that and have relationships with DC and go to these ARPA-E summits and are getting to know all of the utility companies, and they're trying to solve problems that they have. They see how critical that is to growing these businesses. So I think early on there were a lot of mistakes made because that was sort of a knowledge gap for a lot of the investors.
That's surprising to me because these investors are sharp people and they know that, this is a highly regulated industry, and I just frankly kind of find that surprisingly naive.
Well, I think it's really complicated. Everybody likes to think that the good ideas can break through and win, but I think that because you're not dealing with your end customer very often in the energy sector as a startup, you're dealing either through a system integrator or a utility company. You're not able to influence that ultimate adoption in the same way as you could if you were doing a web service or a retail play or any consumer product, where it's much easier to talk to the consumers and get feedback and then deliver them something that they can make decisions on right away. Especially in the case of the utility companies, they are not typically good at innovation and research. Their business models are constrained by what they're able to recover costs on. NRG, David Crane spoke at the ARPA-E Summit, and they're one of the leading innovators in the utility industry, and they are trying to reinvent themselves. And you heard him speak very openly about wanting to think about microgrids and distributed generation and choice and trying to drive that in their business model. And those are pretty threatening concepts to most utility companies.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because just in closing, I mean, that was one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about the lumbering utility companies, if I may, is that the microgrids are poised to upset that apple cart big time and bring it down to the consumer where the consumer does. I mean, if Bill Gates and others have their way, there may well come a time where our homes and our cars are our mini utilities too as generators.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think a lot of people would love to see the industry evolve in that way, getting sort of different ways to store energy at one's home, allowing your car to store energy for your home and usage, taking advantage of pricing differentials on the grid to store energy when it's the cheapest and maybe when it's being produced by the cleanest sources. We're hopeful that at the state level, people can set very high standards for renewable energy and can talk about storage mandates and can do some of the things that will help to make the market and speed the adoption of these important technologies.
Well, I'm glad you said that because the states really are the labs on this. The renewable energy standards, et cetera, are really driving innovation. And that said, of course, the utility sector is one of, if not the most highly regulated in the country. And frankly, rightly so, because energy is the lifeblood of our economy. Without it, we can't turn the lights on and we can't talk to you by phone through this system.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Amy Francetic, Executive Director of Clean Energy Trust, who is a fabulous woman innovator in the clean energy space. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us on Green Connections, and I look forward to chatting with you again very soon.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you for covering these important topics, and we really want to support you and your work, and thanks for caring enough to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you. Thanks again. Have a great day, and good luck with the challenge.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Amy Francetic is amazing. She really has her hands on the pulse, her fingers on the pulse of the clean energy revolution. And by the way, she has a very high-powered board, so we'll have a link to her website on our website, and you can check that out. The key things that I took away from my conversation with Amy are that they're focused on storage, and they're focused on the investments that investors want to make, and I'll talk about that in a moment. On storage, it's a focus on adoption of technologies, scaling, which was very consistent with the ARPA E-Summit where we saw each other recently, and that includes the microgrid and various forms of distributed generation, and it includes batteries. Batteries, as she put it, are, quote, one of the hardest nuts to crack, unquote. The chemistry is really, really difficult to do at scale, and it controls the whole supply chain. And she said there are different chemistries out there kind of, if you will, my word, battling it out to see which one will work and which one will go to scale and which one will be investable, which one will bring the return. Batteries are tough. They also need a lot of money, and they need patient capital. And, when I asked her why so many companies have failed, even with huge amounts of money from the government, that was why, that they're just, it's hard. It's really hard, and batteries are pretty ubiquitous. She said it's also about the end user applications making different trade-offs, that it's performance versus price as the key issue. And interestingly enough, I was curious that she described the Department of Defense as not price sensitive. I think our taxpayer dollars would resist that characterization a bit, but that they're all focused on performance. Now, we all have heard the stories of the $6,000 toilets the Department of Defense purchased, but nonetheless, I do think that we would like our Defense Department to be a bit more price sensitive with performance taken into account. I was curious that she also talked about investors looking at software plays in energy efficiency because they're faster to market, they require less money, and the exit strategy resembles more like a high-tech company exit. It's a quicker in and quicker out than patient capital, and that patient capital is, quote, few and far between. I was very surprised that she said that she found that a lot of investors had misjudged the role of policy on these investments and the friction and resistance that the policies, obviously regulations, make on this sector. And to me, that seems naive. I mean, this is energy, okay? This is utilities. This is the most highly regulated industry probably in the country. And these are savvy investors who made a lot of money making a lot of really good business decisions twice. I find that kind of shocking. But she did talk about NRG Energy as an innovator, and I just did my Huffington Post blog on the ARPA East Summit and brought out attention to one of NRG's key investments and key launches, which is Ivanpah in California, which is 3,500 acres of solar mirrors, really. It's quite a site, so you can find it on HuffingtonPost.com and search my name, and we'll have a link to it on our website as well. So thank you, Amy Francetic. Please tell us your stories and what you think the key issues are. If you're an investor, tell us what you're looking for in an investment. What would get your dollars into clean energy? And if you are a clean energy investor, tell us what you're looking at and what your priorities are for these companies and the kinds of companies you're interested in. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Joan Michelson with Green Connections Radio. You can find us online on greenconnectionsradio.com. Like us on Facebook and follow me on Twitter at Joan Michelson. Thank you again for joining us. We'll have all these links on our website, greenconnectionsradio.com. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Capital Audio Post, your one-stop shop for your post-production needs. 703-712-8757.
Our services include video editing, sound design, sound mixing, ISDN recording, and many other media-related services.
Let us finish your project no matter where you are, across the U.S. or across the world. Go to www.capitalaudiopost.com. Call us at 703-712-8757.
Let us know how we can help you finish your production.